To health matters now, living a healthy lifestyle and practicing good hygiene have been described as some of the ways to prevent pneumonia. On our Focus on Health tonight, our correspondent Yobe talks about what causes pneumonia and more ways of keeping the infection away from you and your loved ones.
The two extremes of life. The very young under 2 years and those above 65 years. These most vulnerable groups are susceptible to pneumonia infection owing to their levels of immunity. But that is not to say that those between these age groups cannot be infected with pneumonia bacteria or viruses.
What causes pneumonia is inhaling the organism most times, and this organism can come from the air or aspirating it when something comes from the mouth and the person aspirates into the lungs, or sometimes it can come from organisms from other parts of the body. Smoking is a risk factor because smoking damages your airways, so people who smoke are at higher risk of pneumonia. Alcoholics are also at high risk of pneumonia because sometimes they get drowsy, and when they are drunk and drowsy, what happens is that they have a higher chance of aspirating. And I said aspiration is one of the routes through which you can get organisms into your lungs. Drinking cold water or cold drinks does not cause pneumonia. There has to be an infection. But during certain seasons, when the weather is cold, the airways are more prone to being infected by organisms, particularly viral organisms.
Pneumonia, which has symptoms such as cough, fever, chest pain, fast breathing, and feeling short of breath, among others, is still among the leading killers of children under 5 years, accounting for 15% of all deaths in that age group worldwide in 2015.
Pneumonia will present with cough, fever, chest pain. TB will present with cough, fever, chest pain. Cancer of the lungs will present with fever, chest pain, all. Now, how do you now distinguish the cough of pneumonia from the cough of TB, from the cough of cancer? That is what training to be a doctor and training to be a specialist is all about. So once you have a cough, see your doctor. The doctor will now determine whether it's pneumonia or TB or cancer or whatever.
In Nigeria, the burden of pneumonia is quite high, like in other parts of the world, because pneumonia complicates almost all other conditions. But the challenges facing the treatment of pneumonia in Nigeria include lack of appropriate knowledge by the doctors and not following guidelines. Though we don't have real local guidelines based on organisms that are found in Nigeria, which is a real challenge because ideally we should have data showing the common organisms causing pneumonia in Nigeria such that we have the right drugs that we should use when people have pneumonia in Nigeria. Right now, we mostly follow international guidelines.
Although Haemophilus influenza type B is part of the pentavalent vaccine given during immunization in Nigeria and the federal government's introduction of the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine in 2014 has been commended by some medical practitioners, there are some concerns.
These vaccines are imported from Europe, America, and they are made against the germs in that environment. And we're hoping and believing that it is the same germs we have here in Nigeria, which may not be true. So the ideal situation is that we should make our own vaccines here in Nigeria against the germs that we have here in Nigeria.
While everyone waits for the production of made-in-Nigeria pneumococcal vaccine, simple measures such as early and exclusive breastfeeding, regular hand washing with soap and water, and ensuring a well-ventilated home and workplace will also reduce the incidence of pneumonia. Yobe reporting for Channels Television News.
The Yobe state government has released 3.7 billion naira for various capital projects. The decision was reached at the end of an executive council meeting held in Damaturu, the state capital. The Commissioner of Information told journalists at the end of the meeting that the projects include education, health, security, amongst others.
Some say education is the most powerful weapon with which you can use to change the world. That's why the sector received a huge sum of money for its development during this meeting. The Yobe State Commissioner for Information, Mr. Ajibule Rafa, says 1.1 billion naira has been earmarked for the renovation and reconstruction of 3 secondary schools chosen from each of the senatorial zones in the state. Surprisingly, none of the schools destroyed by Boko Haram insurgents were listed for repairs. The State Commissioner of Education, Mohammed Lamin, explains why.
Presidential initiative came in to start repairing some of the schools in Kulani, and they are moving to Bujuba. They have taken the responsibility of repairing those schools within Bujuba and Kulani axis. And therefore, there is no need for us to go in to repair these schools while we know they are coming to repair them for us. If we do that, it means we are stopping them from repairing schools for us, and we will leave some of our schools unattended to. That is why we took one school from each of the senatorial districts to go in and repair.
Meanwhile, the council approved the payment of tuition of 836 government-sponsored students at the Nigeria-Turkish international colleges in Mamudo, Kano, Kaduna and Abuja at the total cost of 971 million naira. The council also ratified the approval for the payment of compensation of land acquired for building the 233 Battalion Barrack situated along the Maiduguri-Kano Expressway at the cost of 191 million naira.
We also ratified the supply and the installation of household furniture at the newly completed staff quarters of the 200-bed ultra-modern hospital, Damaturu, at the cost of 76,893,170 naira.
Before closing the meeting, the council deliberated on accessing stabilization fund from the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. It also deliberated on how to appoint consultants to provide services to the state government so that it could access the funds.
It was a grand occasion in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, when Anambra State Governor Willie Obiano takes the Think Home investment campaign to Anambra people who live there. It is also an opportunity for the governor to present his scorecard to the excited sons and daughters of Anambra State, explaining to them his administrative blueprint that has placed the state in the map of prosperity and progress.
It's 2 years and 7 months that Governor Willie Obiano has been in power. And this event is organized for the people of Anambra State living in Port Harcourt to give account of his stewardship. It's the first time the governor is visiting his people in the state, and his arrival here is greeted with loud cheers from the audience. A quick report on what his administration is doing that has attracted investment worth over 4.7 billion naira.
That mission is to create a socially stable, business-friendly environment that will attract both indigenous and foreigners for wealth-creating opportunities in the state. That's the mission. With this vision and mission, we were able to put together a blueprint.
The Deputy Governor of the state, Nkem Okeke, asked the people to heed the call to come back to their state and help develop the state.
You can come to Anambra today and see progress. You can come to Anambra today and see peace and prosperity. The governor can't do it alone. We're asking you all, come and help. Whatever investment you're putting here in Port Harcourt, that's fine. bring 10% of that investment, bring it back to Anambra.
For the first Vice President of the Association of Anambra State Development Union River States branch, Mr. Chibueze Okafor, the leadership style of the governor is commendable.
We are not unaware of your developmental strides. You are landmark and unprecedented works you've been doing in Anambra State. We are not aware of the security you guarantee, the prompt payment of salaries, the infrastructural developments. Today, we are here.
As the governor's first term comes to an end in 2018, presenting his administration's scorecard now becomes imperative to enable the people assess his achievement and decide on what to do if the governor makes up his mind to seek a second term.
Now to check out what's happening in the world of business, and Anne is standing by.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. Well, enterprise risk management professionals say there is need to quickly nip the current economic uncertainties in the bud in order to improve capital inflow. The experts made this comments at the Forum on Enterprise Risk Management in Lagos. They asked the federal government to grant incentives to investors so as to attract them.
Tax waivers as an incentive for people who want to invest. So if they know that, well, given the way the economy is, for a short period of time, maybe they'll be granted tax waivers for some 2-3 years, then people can go and say, okay, let me put my money here. At least the next 3 years, we'll see how it goes. But first, the people's confidence has to be restored.
Every enterprise faces a multitude of risks in every aspect of its operation. So whether you are talking about operational risks that affect the day-to-day activities of such an enterprise, or strategic risks imposed on the enterprise by some externalities, you still have to manage risks, because risk brings along with them elements of uncertainties.
The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry has reiterated the call for prompt diversification of the economy. The president of the chamber, Mrs. Onikepo Akonde, made the call on the occasion of the 30th Lagos Trade Fair. Mrs. Akonde maintains that economic diversification is the responsibility of public and private sectors.
This year, oil price got to its lowest in 2 decades. This calls for major adjustments in both public and private sectors of the economy. Needless to say, it is imperative at this time to focus on the non-oil sector for diversification. The non-oil economy is generally more inclusive and integrated.
That ends business news for tonight. Thanks a lot for watching. I am Anne Nwawadu. Back to you, Melinda.
Many thanks, Anne. And next on the news at 10, Andy Murray overtakes Novak Djokovic to become world #1 and the first British singles player to achieve this feat since computerized rankings began. That's on Sports News. Join us again.